Very good critics. With the first book, especially when I wrote Haroun, I was very unsure about the tone of voice, whether it was too childish, too adult, etc. So after I'd written 3 or 4 chapters, I showed it to him. And when he'd read it, I said, "What did he think?" And he said, "Yeah, Dad, I like it." And I thought something wrong there. So I said, "You do?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Some people might be bored." he said, "Not me, of course, I'd read it, but other people." And I was very shocked. And I said, "What do you mean bored? Why bored?" And he used this wonderful phrase. He said, "It doesn't have enough jump in it." And I knew exactly what he meant. I mean, it was, and I thought, jump. I thought, I can do jump, I thought, give me that back. I went away and rewrote it and gave it to him, this time through gritted teeth, So I said, "What do you think of it now?" And he said, "No, now it's fine."
There you go.
And it was sort of like the best, most constructive literary criticism I ever received. And this time round, I was worried about the Nobodaddy character, because after all, there I am, 50 years older than my son, and I'm writing about somebody who's 50 years older than his son, and possibly dying. And here is this figure of death literally sucking the life out of him and filling up with his life, and I thought, is that too scary? And so I didn't know what to do if it was, but I worried that it might be. So I showed it to him. I gave him the first couple of chapters and just didn't say anything. I just said, "Just read them," and then just kept my fingers crossed, because otherwise I was going to be screwed. If he didn't like it, I wouldn't know what to do. But fortunately, he was not at all freaked out, and in fact, without prompting, said that it was his favorite character. And I thought, first of all, it gave me permission just to go ahead and do it, and also it made me think, this child has a dark side. And maybe I can sort of play that up a little bit. So it even encouraged me to push it a little bit more. So yeah, they were very helpful.
Now with Luca, one thing that we find in this book that isn't in Haroun would be the way that it is partly structured according to what I would describe almost as a video game sensibility or a gamer's sensibility. And I'm wondering, was that something that you created in hopes of identifying somehow with your son as a reader, or did he suggest that to you?
No.
How did that become a part of
No, I didn't let him write the damn book,
He's your first critic.
No, but that doesn't mean he gets to say what's in it. He just reads it. I write it. That's how it works. It just occurred to me at a certain point that here I am writing a kind of quest, essentially a quest narrative, and actually one of the very oldest quest narratives, which is the quest for fire. I realized as I was doing some reading around the subject that you find this story in literally every culture, every single culture. Whether it's, people know, Prometheus, sure, but there's a lot of Native American myths about the quest for fire, in which very often the fire thief is an animal. There's a wily coyote in this book, and there is a Native American myth in which the coyote is the fire thief. You could go to Korea or China or Latin America or anywhere you want to go, and there is a fire myth. And it struck me that it may well be the oldest story, because after all, human beings' acquisition of fire is one of the great transforming moments, in the development of the species. And so that story about stealing fire, sometimes I think it might be older than the story about the sky god. Those are almost certainly the 2 oldest stories.
Yeah.
So I thought suddenly that the structure of a lot of video games of a certain kind is very similar to the quest narrative, where you have to, if you think about, it's not often that I can use the terms Pilgrim's Progress and Super Mario in the same sentence. So
if anyone could, though.
But if you think about it, they're structured very similarly, that you have to pass through the pilgrim or the plumber has to pass through a series of tests, and the tests become increasingly difficult, and he can't skip them. You know, you have to pass one test before you can have the next one, and so on, and they're quite similar. You know, so it seems, and again, if you think about even the Grail myth, you know, it's the same thing, because as well as just killing dragons and you know, overcoming boiling cauldrons of oil and so on, you also have to in some way grow. You know, that the hero has to become more considerable,
right?
Morally as well as physically, so that, you know, you don't find the Holy Grail until you are considered to be worthy of finding the Holy Grail. You know, and so there's a growth narrative as well, and all of that I thought is quite. I mean, I agree that the tests in Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog are not moral, exactly, but they are. It does require the player to grow as a player. You know, so the player that you are when if you ever get to the point of freeing Princess Toadstool, is not the same person as you were when you started the game. You know, you've acquired a lot of skill. So I thought I could just use this modern language, you know, to, if you like, renew this very old story.
And the result is that Luca begins as a boy and ends when he, you know, successfully, as it were, a young man.
He grows up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I suppose there is a parallel to Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. You know, I mean, the Dorothy who defeats the witch is a different girl than the little girl who can't protect her dog. You know, and one of the reasons she is different is that, she has in common with Luca, is that she discovers throughout the book the uselessness of adults. You know, all the adults in The Wizard of Oz are pathetic. Starting with Aunt Em and Uncle Henry, who can't help her, and going all the way through to the Wizard of Oz himself, who's a fraud. You know, so she has to discover that grown-ups are fraudulent, and therefore she has to take matters into her own hands. You know, and grows up. And there's actually a thing that I wrote about the Wizard of Oz, in which I think there's an extraordinary moment, the scene when the witch melts. You literally see the witch growing down. And as she grows down, Dorothy grows up. You know, and it's just there in that one image. And I think that's an important part of these stories, that happens.
One of my favorite scenes in this novel actually involves that very same parallel, and it's early on when you're describing the way that Rashid is reinvigorated as a late-life father, if you will. And then there's that very funny sequence in which basically Luca's parents are reduced to happy, babbling...
Yeah, they behave like children as he grows up.
Exactly.
So he starts to walk and they jump up and down. And
yes.
So yeah. Well, I mean, I think...
But I assume you're drawing in part on personal...
No, I wasn't told like that. No.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Nothing to do with me.
What I'm wondering about, though, is when you went to write this book, to what degree were you reaching back to those sort of crucial moments in your own life as a father?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, very much so. And the boys also are quite, in both books, are quite closely modeled on the boys that they were written about. I mean, the theme of left-handedness, for instance, in this book is because my son Milan is left-handed in a family in which there's basically no left-handedness. So he don't know where it came from. But he was very definitely left-handed from an early age. And I think, you know, if you've brought up a left-handed child, you understand that sometimes it's difficult in a right-handed world.
Is that true, Mom? A little bit now.
So I just wanted that to be there as one of his characteristics, and to show that the thing which is a difficulty at the beginning becomes a kind of enabling thing, you know, at the end. It actually helps him to achieve his goal.